All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Horse Guy Mike podcast. I'm your host, Horse Guy Mike. Joining with me, my good friend Johnny the Wire Herco. How are you feeling tonight, John?
Oh, I'm feeling great tonight because, we live in Orlando. We're Orlando Magic fans. They just got the number one pick.
That's right.
Chet Holmgren going to come in here with Jalen Suggs, win a bunch of NBA championships. So I'm feeling great about that. But this is a horse racing podcast, and we need to talk about what happened a week and a half ago, Mike.
That's right. So we're going to be talking about the Preakness Stakes today and the Black-Eyed Susan. Before we jump into that, obviously we have to touch on the Kentucky Derby and what went on there. Rich Strike won 80-1, beat my top pick in the race, Epicenter. John's top pick in the race, White Barrio, finished a solid, I think, 15th. Also,
Okay, let's stop there because
our head-to-head matchup of Zozos versus Cyberknife. The Zozos won. That's
cool.
A double L
yeah,
for John.
they got like 11th and 15th. Cool, man. Great head-to-head there. Let's talk about the White Barrio thing, man. I said I had 3 A horses, and Epicenter was one of them, okay?
Yeah.
So if we want, now, do we want to talk about our day? Like, how was your day going when Rich Strike did his thing?
I mean, it was fine. I wasn't having an excellent day because I didn't have Santine and I didn't have Stolen Base.
Oh, Santine. Who brought up Santine on the podcast?
You brought him up, but did you have him? Did you have him?
I did.
Maybe,
yeah.
Maybe you did. Maybe you didn't.
So
I don't know.
let's bring the followers, the listeners, into my world on what happened on Kentucky Derby Day. So I played against Jack Christopher in the pick 6. That immediately failed. And then the pick 5, I didn't use the horse I talked about, obligatory, so that failed. And then so I was betting angry on the pick 4 at this point because I've lost my pick 6 and pick 5. So I remember how on the podcast I was like, if the top 2 horses in that 3-year-old turf race don't win, it's open for like 7 horses, right? Well, so what I ended up doing is I ended up playing 2 pick 4 tickets, and I started playing those other horses on my B list because all my A horses were losing. So I bet on Stolen Base, the horse that won. I bet him twice, once on each ticket. And then because I was angry, I also singled Santine in one of those tickets, and I bet on Santine in the other ticket. So, and I singled Jackie's Warrior in both. So I was alive 3 out of 3 on 2 pick 4 tickets. And then both of those pick 4 tickets had Epicenter in the Derby along with other horses. But Epicenter would have won me $1,300 if he just would have finished off the race, which he was going to finish off the race. And then all of a sudden, Rich Strike comes in and ruins my day, ruins my weekend, ruins my life. Maybe.
Everyone talks about how great of a story this is. And, I'm not going to knock the horse. I think Sonny Leone's a great rider. I'm happy to see him get his first graded stakes win. The horse, he was in the right place at the right time, took advantage of a great situation, and he outperformed a lot of good horses. He outkicked Mo Donegal.
He ran them down. Like it was, he was like accelerating like a Ferrari or something.
And he got over 100 buyers. So definitely not going to discount what he did. But everything set up perfectly for him. He's not a horse I'll ever bet back unless it's in, non-winners of 3 allowance race or something like that.
It's the worst bad beat of my career, horse racing career, I imagine a lot of people's gambling careers because everyone had money on Epicenter, right?
Yeah,
and all of a sudden the 80-1 shot just blows by him in the last 25 yards, 50 yards.
Here's the thing: if Zandon had beat Epicenter, I would have been upset because I dismissed Zandon and I played against him.
That's what it looked like was going to happen.
Yeah, and then Epicenter held him off and Rich Strike won. And I couldn't. Yeah. I wasn't even mad, and I wasn't allowed to a ton of money like you are, but my mouth was just agape like. I didn't even write this horse on my recap because he wasn't in the field. I had all 20 horses on my breakdown. Didn't have this one because I wrote it on Wednesday before the scratches. So couldn't be
you
mad.
Had your mouth open. I laid on my back on the floor and just stared at the ceiling for like a good 2 minutes. Like literally the moment he passed Epicenter in the last, and I'm like Rich Strike, and my soul left my body.
And that's fine.
That kind of day.
And now And obviously Rich Strike's not racing in the Preakness, and there's been a lot of controversy about, oh, should we change the Triple Crown because one Kentucky Derby
No.
horse is skipping it?
That's my view.
Yeah, I think it's a terrible, terrible idea. They want to drum up more interest. I get it from like NBC's perspective. They have to fill like a
They want to get
Preakness without.
TV ratings.
Yeah, they want TV ratings,
Yeah.
but it's not about that. If you're not a good enough trainer to turn your horse around in 2 weeks after the break in all of April, then that's fine. But don't change the entirety of the Triple Crown circuit just for one situation.
Oh,
Again,
right,
it's the
right,
first time
yeah.
it's happened in 30 plus years where a healthy horse has skipped it. It's not going to be the norm. There's no reason to change it at all.
Well, and I think him being such a long shot also factored into that. Well, technically, Country House skipped the Preakness too, and he was the winner because he won by disqualification.
He was injured. He was injured and then never raced again.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Rich Strike never races again because
he's pointing towards the Belmont.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, what if they just come back and they're like, he's got a little injury, then he ends up going to the breeding shed because, why would you put out a second race after that Derby when that's most likely going to be the best race of his life, And why would you even risk running him again when he's worth I don't know what, 40 million, 20 million?
No, I doubt it. Country House stands for $7,500. If Rich Strike was to go to the breeding shed if Rich Strike was to go to the breeding shed right now, he'd probably pull in 5,000 or 7,000.
I think he'd go. I think he'd get more because Country House didn't actually win the Derby, and everyone knows it.
But even a horse
second,
even a horse Always Dreaming,
he ran his ass off that day, which is great for horse racing. It was a huge news story.
But Always Dreaming is only 10,000. Orb's only 10,000. Just because you win the Derby doesn't mean you automatically got a huge ticket. Plenty of good horses stand for dirt cheap. So I think we'll see Rich Strike again. I think he'll go off at 8-1 in the Belmont, and he'll finish 7th out of 8.
Yeah, he's gonna. Yeah. He went from an 83 buyer on the synthetic to a 101, 102 buyer.
Yeah. So I'm sad that he's skipping this race, not because I want to cheer for him, but because I want to bet against him.
Yeah, I think we were the same. We wanted him to run so he would take a lot of money, but not to be.
Yeah, but so that gives us a nice transition into we're going to talk about the Preakness, and let's kind of break down this race and see where we're at with that. So John, jumping right in, who is your top pick in this race?
Yeah, for the Preakness, personally, it's my favorite of the Triple Crown. I think it's the most overlooked for obvious reasons, but it's the most fun. So with that being said, let's go with the chalk Epicenter. He's going to be my top pick.
Oh, that's surprising.
Yeah, there's another horse I really like in here, and we'll talk about him next, but I got to go Epicenter on top. I looked at his buyers today. He ran a 102 or a 100 off of the 102 before that. And my big question before the Derby was, can he replicate, that 102? I was like, he's going to be on my A list, but he's not my top pick because I didn't know if he peaked too soon. Well, I think he just hit that level. He doubled down on that 100 buyer. So I think that's who he is as a horse. I don't think he just popped the big one and then he faded. So I like that. And I also like that if you look on the PPs, he got a workout in after the Derby already. And it's not fast or nothing, but that was the workout where Asmussen, he wanted to see him run on the track, and then he was going to make a decision after that workout. So it must have been, strong enough, healthy enough that he's like, yep, we're ready for the Preakness. So I think he's going to be ready. He's got a beautiful outside draw. He's outside of the speed horses. So, I mean, if I was going to let you go, but do you want to get into the pace scenario now, or do you want to?
No, I'll talk about it because I'm actually also picking Epicenter as my top pick.
Okay, I figured.
Because I love this horse. He's probably my favorite horse this year. And he was before the Derby. He was my Derby pick. He was my Derby pick ever since the Louisiana Derby. I had him in the that Lecomte that he won as well. He was my top pick in that race. So just a big fan of this horse in general. And the thing is, unlike the Derby where there's 20 horses and there's a lot of traffic and you can get something crazy happen, the best horse is going to win this race, and it's going to be Epicenter, because there's only 8 horses, or is it 9? 9 horses,
9.
and you're not going to run into crazy traffic trouble. He can be close to the pace, so if they're going slow, he'll stay close. If they're going way too fast, then he can sit off of it like he did in the Derby and power home.
Bingo. That's what I wanted to get into. So
he's the perfect horse. So he's my top pick. There is one that I really want to bet here from a value standpoint. So if Epicenter is under even money, I won't play him straight to win. I'll try to get creative with my exotics and singling him in the multi-legs. But if he's like 6-5, I'm just going to hammer like a win bet. I'm hoping and praying.
I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance he'll stay at 1-1, because usually in the Triple Crown races, there's so much money in the pools, and not everyone wants to bet on a heavy favorite. Mm-hmm. That it'll keep him up there at like 1-1. So I think we'll get like 1-1 on him. So let's just dive into the pace scenario a little bit, because I think this is really how you got to look at the race. Obviously, early voting skipped the Derby for Chad Brown, and he pointed him to the Preakness for a reason, because, I don't think he thought, like, early voting's a front runner, and I don't think Chad Brown thought that he can go gate to wire in the Derby.
I think he saw all the pace. He saw the writing on the wall for the pace in the Derby. He's like, I don't want any part of that. We're just going to stay healthy and skip it.
And early voting got run down by Mo Donegal, who was in the Derby. So it's kind of hard to turn the tables on a horse like that unless you get an even easier lead. So that's why early voting shows up here. And then Armagnac is kind of a wild card, where he's coming in off of he won an allowance race the same weekend of the Derby out in Santa Anita. And he won it so impressively that now he's in the Preakness 2 weeks later. And he's another front runner. So
even like Fenwick.
Yeah, Fenwick maybe too. Yeah. But what I'm getting at is there's going to be one of 2 scenarios that happens. Either early voting and Armagnac both go out, and maybe Fenwick, and they go out and they set a fast pace, in which case Epicenter, he'll sit 3rd or 4th behind it. But if let's just say it's early voting, Armagnac blows the start, or he's not that fast, same with Fenwick, then if Rosario sees that, then he can just go right up next to early voting with Epicenter and then get that perfect stalking trip right outside of him. So I think there's really no way Epicenter can lose on the pace scenario.
Yeah, that's 100% right. Like, Rosario is not going to let early voting have an easy ride. If he sees him sitting on like 47, 48, he's going to start pushing Epicenter to be there. He'll be outside in the clear, which I think is great. Drawing outside of the speed, he's not going to get any kickback. He's going to be able to have that traffic-free move around the turn or around the backstretch, wherever he wants to do it. So I think it sets up perfectly. I was a big fan of early voting. I like how intentional Chad's being with this horse. Barely got second. That Wood Memorial, he got caught at the wire. If that stretch was, 5 feet shorter, then he would have won, and everyone would have been talking about early voting as this big superstar, undefeated, all of that. But he got caught by Mo Donegal, who's probably one of the best closers in the country, except for maybe Rich Strike now.
Yeah, right.
And very similar to Cloud Computing, a lot of people are making that comparison to Cloud Computing, who beat Always Dreaming. Same thing, qualified for the Derby, Clairvich Stables, skipped the Derby to go to the Preakness and won. So similar storylines. I was really big on the early voting, I think, but everything about Epicenter is just pointing his way. So I'm gonna hope Epicenter runs down early voting in the stretch. Probably just play those 2 on top, because that's how I kind of see this going out.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you're right on. You said some good things there about early voting, especially about the comparison to Cloud Computing. Same trainers, same owners, same move, skipping the Derby, but I think it's a different horse though. Cloud Computing was more of a mid-pack runner, late runner, and early voting looks like he's just a pure, like, not a sprinter, but he's a front runner. And so when I was looking at early voting's past performances, I noticed that in all 3 of his races, obviously he's got 2 wins and a second, very good. But if you look at the lengths of the margin of victory, he loses ground every time in the stretch. So all 3 races, I think he's turned for home with the lead, with a various lead, like 2 lengths, 4 lengths, 6 lengths, whatever. and each time he has lost ground, and the races have been at different lengths. So it's not like, I don't think the length got him. I think he's just more of like a 1-turn mile type of horse rather than a 2-turn, long distance type horse. Because even if he does get an easy lead, I think there's a chance he still gives up the lead. You know what I mean? Because that's just like, he hasn't ever shown an ability to really finish strong in any of his races.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he'll be in first when they hit the stretch. I can pretty much guarantee that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about first. I mean, maybe second. Like maybe Epicenter's feeling good and just runs right by him.
I think it'll be as they're hitting the turn. I think early voting will be in first with Armagnac and Fenwick sitting second and third, and then Epicenter's gonna go around the outside. They're gonna hit the turn. It's gonna be just like the Louisiana Derby where Zozo's hit the stretch in first, and then Epicenter blew by him like he was standing still. And then Zozo's held on to second. I think early voting is gonna do the same thing here. I want to talk about the horse that I think is gonna be running them down, and it's not Secret Oath. It's not Simplification. It's my boy, Creative Minister. Let's go 12-1 on the morning line.
I like him.
Or 10 to 1 on the morning line. Let me talk about Creative Minister for a second here. This horse, it ran on the Kentucky Derby undercard 2 weeks ago, or week and a half ago by now. And Kenny McPeak, why is Kenny McPeak running this horse back off of just 2 weeks rest? Because he dominated that race, because he's only run 3 races in his life and he is primed and ready. Kenny McPeak is not one to just like enter horses into aggressive spots for no reason.
Not only that, you buried the lead, man.
He wasn't.
They paid $150,000 to be able to put him in the race.
Exactly. So they paid that knowing that this horse is going to hit the board. He's going to get first, second, or third. We're going to recoup that money, and we're going to get that graded stakes placement.
It's a big sign that they like the horse, that you pay that much money. And run him back in 2 weeks.
If you're paying that much money to supplement him, you're running him back on a short layoff. They have to feel good about it. $180,000 purchase out of Creative Cause, out of a Tappet mare. I don't see anything wrong with this horse. He's got that versatile style where he can be far back, he can be kind of mid pack. So I think he's going to be right there with Epicenter sitting in probably 4th or 5th. I think Epicenter's going to make the first move. Epicenter's going to run down early voting. I think Creative Minister is going to be a little bit closer to the pace, and he'll be picking up the pieces to hit third.
I mean, you said you don't want to play him to win, or you do?
If he is like 15-1, I'll probably throw some money on him.
Okay.
Which I think he might be, because the top 4 are going to get a ton of money.
So I wrote down wild card next to him. I'm definitely going to use him in some capacity.
He'll be, when I do a multi-ticket, I'm only doing those 2. I'm only doing Epicenter and Creative Minister. And then if he's like above 10-1, I'll probably throw some money on him to win. Yeah.
So I think that's all great stuff, man. If you look at his races, he's had 3 races all this year, and he went from a 76 buyer to an 83 buyer to a 92 buyer. So, and he's won the last 2 races, and he got second by a neck in his first career start. So
and that was a sprint.
He's improving
he likes
pretty
the distance.
nicely.
Yeah.
What's that?
That first race was a sprint, so he likes the extra distance.
Oh, right. So he went sprint and then 2-turn. So, I mean, and he's only getting better the longer they go. So, I mean, I think he's got a big chance. And I love the fact he's drawn in the 2-hole. As we know about Pimlico, they do have tight turns at Pimlico. And you don't necessarily have to be on the lead, but you definitely need to save ground around the turns. You can't go 3-4 wide around the turns. Mm-hmm. So I think Creative Minister, especially with his mid-pack running style, he's in a great spot to just get over and find a spot either on the rail or like 2 paths off the rail, save the ground. And then who knows, when they turn for home, maybe he's feeling great again and he can tip out and go get it.
Yeah. So speaking of the rail, let's talk about the one horse, the one I thought would be your top pick, Simplification. Yep. Why did you not end up going with Simplification?
Well, for the reasons we talked about Epicenter, like I see no way Epicenter gets a bad trip in here, basically. And I think Epicenter is going to run back to that 100 buyer number. But if he doesn't, my guy, much like you're betting on Creative Minister to run late, I think Simplification, he's going to be the one that runs late. I brought him up on the Derby. He was kind of my, my long shot to hit the board, and he almost did. He got 4th place. He ran really well. They did what they should have done in the Florida Derby, where they held him back off the pace. He's shown that he's got the early speed to get out there, but he doesn't necessarily like running like that. He likes to kind of be back, and he doesn't mind getting dirt kicked in his face, which I think is a big advantage. So. Drawing the rail at Pimlico, you want to save that ground. I think simplification, if he's still feeling good after that Derby run, which I don't see why not. I think he can just sit on the rail, find a mid-pack ride somewhere. Johnny Velasquez picks up the mount. So he's got a great jockey. I will say it's a little concerning that Jose Ortiz left simplification to ride early voting.
I think it's more of like a Chad Brown. Like he rode early voting in the wood.
That's a good
point. And so
point.
he had already like made that commitment to ride early voting in the Preakness.
And he doesn't want to ruin his relationship with Chad Brown for the turf horses either. So
yeah. So my thoughts on simplification is I like this horse a lot. What bothered me was that he was in the perfect spot to win this race as a closer. He was sitting in 11th. Derby? Yeah, he was 11th.
Come on, it's the Derby, dude. He ran 4th.
No, but if Rich Strike was able to close into it, like I consider
Rich Strike was the only horse that finished strong. Every other horse was just kind of loping in there.
And that's kind of my point is that he was 11th when they were going around the turn. He was 4th when they hit the stretch.
4th.
He was 4th when they hit the stretch, and then he finished 4th. So he didn't pass any horses, and no horses passed him. It was just kind of the same, except for Rich Strike. No one made any moves down the stretch.
Well,
so I don't see him doing a similar thing here.
You don't see him running anybody down.
And the other thing is, I think this is the race where his schedule is going to catch up with him.
That's a fair point. He's had a lot of runs.
Yeah.
I mean, he runs a 90. He's ran a 96, a 92, a 96, a 91, a 90 buyer like his last 5 races.
Yeah.
I mean, he's always over 90.
He's just been going nonstop. Like he ran in the Mucho Macho Man, the Holy Bull, the Fountain of Youth, the Florida Derby,
right,
and the Kentucky Derby.
Every month he's had a race, and now he's coming back in 2 weeks. I mean, Epicenter's done the same, but Epicenter's also looked better. So
yeah, and Epicenter got that extra week layoff before the Derby. Simplification hasn't had more than a month and a half off since he started racing.
Yeah, it's all fair, man. Like between Simplification and Creative Minister, I think one of those two is going to run up into the, maybe even into the I think into the exacta. I'll give you Epicenter and then Simplification, Creative Minister. Take that exacta and then box it.
See, I think
that's a smart play.
Simplification keyed on top, and then early voting Creative Minister in second, third. That's my.
What if you key early voting in third? Two horses run by him down the lane.
I'm gonna stick with my guns here, but let's talk about the other big elephant in the room here, Secret Oath. What are your thoughts on Secret Oath?
I like her. I wrote down underneath on my notes. Much like early voting, I don't really think she has a chance to win. Just not really based on her running style. I mean, her running style is the exact same as Creative Minister and Simplification. So there is a world in which she does get up to win this race. I don't see her popping a 100 buyer, I guess, is the one thing. Like, I could see Creative Minister doing it. I could see Simplification doing it. I just can't see Secret Oath, pulling a Swiss skydiver and, beating the boys in the Preakness. Now, maybe she will, and I'll be looking like a fool for saying that. But, it looks like she runs like the low to mid 90s buyers. I'm not sure how much improvement there is there. She had a great Kentucky Oaks. She looked amazing. But I feel like that was kind of her maximum effort, and she got a 94 buyer, which would not be good enough to win the Preakness. Yeah.
And that's how I feel too. Everyone talked about like, oh, Secret Oath would have won this Derby. It's like, no, she got a 94 and the winner got a 101. It's like she won.
I think she's good enough to run into the exacta. Like for say, I probably should have had her included in that group with Simplification, Creative Minister, and Secret Oath. I think one of those three can run up into the exacta.
See, and I know there's a jockey change, but I always go back to that Arkansas Derby where she was in second when they hit the stretch, and then faded when she realized that she couldn't catch Cyberknife. She faded from second to third, And that,
I think chasing a male horse definitely was part of that. But I also think the jockey made his move too early on the turn. That was kind of like a little gray area. Like they think the jockey moved a little too early, and then that's why she was tired at the end of the race. Like he should have waited a little longer, and maybe she would have had a little more left to finish. And then you see Luis Saez gave her a perfect ride, and she won the Oaks by 1 million.
yeah, I
So
mean, the
maybe,
Oaks was
yeah,
also perfect setup. Like they went blazing in the
it
Oaks
was,
too.
yeah.
And she was able to stay outside away from trouble.
And we
So
didn't pick her for the Oaks either.
no, we faded her there. So maybe she'll burn us twice.
Yeah.
Just D-Way and Lucas just continue to kick us in the balls all month long. I'm not gonna use her in anything here.
Not even like a trifecta
No,
third place? Oh,
no,
I don't know.
because I think like if I'm gonna use an extra horse, I'm gonna use simplification. I'm gonna early voting creative minister, and then if I have to use one more, it'd be simplification. I think all three of them are
So
better than Secret
you're
Oath.
going really short with your options.
I mean, if I wanted to go like epicenter on top and then creative minister, early voting, and then creative minister, early voting, simplification, Secret Oath, that might be
Yeah,
a
do
try that I
something
could
like
play.
that. Yeah.
I mean, she's better than the other Happy Jack and Armagnac and Skippy Longstockings, but that's not saying too much. I mean, even Skippy Longstockings was got a 91 buyer in the wood. And that was only 3.5 lengths back from
Yeah.
Donegal.
I mean, yeah. I mean, look, Skippy Longstocking is 20-1. He's going to be another like wise guy bomb horse to play underneath. I don't really know about Saffy Joseph. Like Saffy's horses didn't run at all in Kentucky.
Yeah, and I
You
don't think
know,
I don't even know if he's run at Pimlico before.
yeah, I don't know what he's going to do. Saffy running horses at Pimlico.
Yeah, 5 horses.
So maybe
Nice.
White Barrio and Skippy Longstocking, maybe they'll find their way into like a Peter Pan type of race at Saratoga or something in Monmouth.
Yeah, we'll see. But that's my thoughts. I think we're both on epicenter here. Any other last thoughts on the Preakness?
No, I mean, it sounds like we pretty much have similar tickets, man. We're going to use epicenter on top and then mixing in simplification, creative minister, early voting, and I'm going to throw in Secret Oath.
Yep. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and jump into the Black-Eyed Susan on Friday, grade 2 race for 3-year-old fillies going 1.125 miles. John, who's your top pick in the Black-Eyed Susan?
Yeah. So, this is the race it's a grade 2, all of the good horses, they kind of point to the Kentucky Oaks. So you kind of get the second tier. And with that being said, I thought there was a lot of ways you could go in this race. You don't have to pick the favorite, who I'm actually going to fade. And with that being said, my top pick is actually 12-1. It's going to be number 5, Beguine.
Okay.
She is coming out of the Fantasy Stakes at Oaklawn, where she almost ran down Ugiri, who was on a loose lead that day. Beguine started her career sprinting, going six furlongs. She didn't like it. She got 3rd and 4th, and then they sent her around 2 turns for the first time. That was in early March, and then she won. So she broke her maiden going 2 turns, and then the next race was early April in the Fantasy Stakes as a prep for the Kentucky Oaks. She got 2nd by a neck. She almost ran down Ugiri. Ugiri ended up setting the fast pace in the Kentucky Oaks that burned everybody out. And then Beguine went from a 73 buyer in her win to an 86 buyer. So she made a pretty big buyer jump. And this is going to be the second time that she's facing winners. So I really like that. She got her feet wet, against quality horses, even though it was a grade 3. So not the best field that she faced, but the 86 buyer is right there with all of the other contenders in this race. And she also fired a bullet workout at Churchill Downs coming out of that Fantasy Stakes. So I think she's coming in strong, second time against winners. I think she's a logical horse to, maybe make another improvement. And last point, she's going from F. Arietta, I don't even know who that jockey is, to Jose Ortiz. And I think that's a pretty good sign when you go from a no-name local jockey to a big-time national jockey, even if it is in one of these big stakes races. So I think Beguine's live, and I'm going to play her on top and hope we get a big price here for the Black-Eyed Susans.
All right. I like that pick. It's a good pick. This, like you said, this race is kind of wide open. And with that being said, My horse 6-1, and that horse is Distinctly Possible. I love
the Chad Brown. Is that the Chad Brown horse?
This is the Chad Brown horse. Lightly raced. It's only raced in one race this year, and that's when it broke its maiden. Raced in 100K maiden at Keeneland on April 10th. I think Chad was using that race as like its prep for this race because she had been on layoff since October. Chad put her in a grade 1 last year while she was still a maiden. In her maiden, she got second. Next race out, Chad put her in a grade 1. She lost to Juju's Map. If you're not familiar, Juju's Map got second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Juju's Map also came back and won last week at Churchill. So Juju's Map's a very good horse, and Distinctly Possible got second behind her. Came back off of a 6-month layoff. Won its prep race for this. Good workouts. $670,000 purchase. There's no reason to think that this horse isn't set for a big performance here. Not tired from a long campaign, well rested. Chad's kind of being smart about placement here, like always. The only thing you can kind of knock her against is that she's got low buyers, 78 in her last race, but her Brisnets are right up there with the competitive ones. She got a 95 in that race on the Brisnet scale. So depending on what speed figure you're looking at, she's actually just as competitive as everyone else. So if you're gonna go in a wide open race, I'm gonna choose one that's 6-1, kind of 4th or 5th choice.
Yeah, so I didn't write her down, but it's not like I hated her, but I just didn't know what to do with her. Because yeah, like you said, she ran a 78 buyer, but as you always also said, she ran in a grade 1 and got second last year. So, it's very, very interesting that she shows up here after, she just has one win in her career. But it is the second time she's facing other winners because she did run in that grade 1. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a logical horse to improve. I don't know. I don't know if, I see that 78 buyer and it's like, man, is she really going to, go up into the 90s? Cause it's probably going to take like a low 90s buyer to win this race. It's very possible. So yeah, I don't hate the pick,
Yeah, and if it was just her buyer, but like I said, I checked the Brisnet as well, and she got a 95 Brisnet, which is really good. Second highest in this field.
Okay. I didn't see the Brisnets. What did Begin get on that one?
Let's see. Begin 92 last race.
Yeah, so they like Distinctly Possible even better.
Yep. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, so we're both kind of looking at prices here. Like you said, it's kind of wide open.
Ooh,
and tell me why you went against Adar Manor.
Yeah, I got one more thing about Distinctly Possible. I'll bring up later.
Okay.
So Adair Manor, yeah, I'm gonna fade Adair Manor, especially at 5-2. That's way too short for this field. I mean, this is a big field, and looking at the buyers, like there was really no separation in the buyers. Like Adair Manor, yeah, she was with Bob Baffert, and under Bob Baffert, she ran back-to-back 94 buyers, and looked like an easy horse to win the Santa Anita Oaks and go on to the Kentucky Oaks. And guess what? Bob Baffert had to give her up. He sent her to Timiac team. She comes back. She runs an 87 buyer, and she gets second to Desert Dawn. Now, Desert Dawn's very good. She ran up for third in the Kentucky Oaks. I think that was also aided by the pace. It was a wicked hot pace, and she's a late runner, so that helped her out to get third. Distant, and she was way behind Secret Oath in that. But Adair Manor going from a 94 down on McCarthy. I don't know. There's a lot going on there. A lot of changes. A lot of stuff you can't really trust. So I'm gonna fade Adair Manor. I'm just gonna hope that she doesn't win, because what I'm thinking with this race, I'm gonna try to hit that Black-Eyed.
All right, I kind of agree. I mean, I like Adair Manor more than you do, probably. Like you said, she lost to Desert Dawn, who when that loss happened, you're like, oh, she's a fraud. Desert Dawn's terrible. Well, Desert Dawn fired back and got third behind Ness and Secret Oath, who are the two best fillies in the country.
She was way behind, way behind.
I mean, she was in front of Kathleen O, and she was in front of Echo Zulu. So, So it's still
It's a
impressive.
different race with different horses, Mike.
Yeah,
There
and then
is
even
a-
that last race, and I don't know the intricacies of Brisnet versus Beyer, but she got a 98 Brisnet, which is the fastest in this field in that last race. It was a 101, a 100, and then a 98. So it wasn't that much of a drop off in her Brisnet speed figures, even though her Beyer was a little bit more of a significant drop there. So I think she's still the most likely winner. I think she is the deserving favorite. Like there's no one else I would make a favorite in this race over her. She will be the front runner. Let's see.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, her only wins have been like just gunning it from the front.
Yeah,
I
but if
mean,
you look, there's two other
it's
E
so risky.
styles.
Yeah.
Missy Greer and Midnight Stroller, both E's, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 EPs. So I think it's going to be pretty quick up front.
Yeah,
So that's
I don't
also
see her
why,
getting an easy lead out there
yeah.
either.
So that's also why I like Distinctly Possible as kind of a mid pack presser closer. I think it's going to be pretty quick up front. So I think it's going to set up perfectly for her. We saw it in the Oaks. That's exactly what happened there. I think she'll swing outside, kind of power home. Chad's
Yeah.
good at doing that.
Yeah, I mean, Distinctly Possible is definitely on my radar now a little bit more. Two other horses that I think we need to mention are Luna Bell and Interstate Daydream,
Mm.
because they are, I believe, they're the second and third choices on the morning line.
Yeah, Luna Bell was my second choice. She was going to be my top pick until I dove deep into this. I just love, the local girl winning. All she does is win. She's won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in a row, five in a
Five
row.
in a row, 5 in a row with the same jockey, and then he's back on.
Yeah, just beating up all these local fillies. I love seeing that.
Yep.
She's again, she's had a hell of a campaign. She has not had any time off. She raced in July, August, September, October, November,
She's
December,
raced. This is
January,
gonna be her
February, March.
12. This is
March.
gonna be her 12th run of her life in less than a year, right? So
Yeah, I mean, eventually that's got to catch up with you.
yeah, this is why I don't think she's gonna win. I know a lot of people for the hometown reason are gonna be betting her. She's 9-2, Maryland bred. I mean, I think the waters get really deep in here.
Yeah, and everyone's going to see those wins, and they'll just be like, "Oh, she wins all the time."
That's what I was gonna say. She has 5 wins in a row. That's tough. That's tough to compare or to compete with. But I really think that the open company here is really going to test her. I know she ran an 86 and an 87 Beyer. So again, all of these horses are right there in that 86, 87 Beyer range. So it's like, who is going to step up and run that 90 something Beyer? I don't think it's going to be Luna Bell. To your point, she's raced a lot of times. This is a deep field. I think she's good. I think she can hit underneath. I would play her underneath, but I'm not going to go on top with her.
Yeah. And then the other one we want to talk about is Interstate Daydream. Brad Cox. She got third in the Ashland, well beaten by Ness. That was the race where Ness just kind of blew away the entire field by 7 lengths. She was a distant third. She was one of the pace setters up there with another horse that I like a lot, Happy Soul, who is a pure sprinter. She was able to hang on for third, but that's not really saying much considering how far back everyone else was compared to Nest. So, but before that, I mean,
well, so for that race, it was on a wet fast track, and they absolutely cooked up front on the pace. So I think you can really scratch that one out for Interstate Daydream and the horse you like, Happy Soul, because if you do that and look at her race prior. The optional claimer, she ran an 89 Beyer, and she sat off the early pace, and then she powered home and won by 8. So I think she was kind of out of her element being on the lead. I think she wants to be just off of the lead, and I think if she can do that, I think then you'll see a totally different horse, and she might go on it because she's already run the 89 Beyer. So if you look at it from that angle, like if she gets back to that, she might be the one that runs that low 90s Beyer and wins this race. So
yeah, and we'll see. And again, she's an EP8, so she's going to be towards the front of the pace, and I think this is going to help cook this pace even hotter.
That could very well happen. But I think the way you want to play this, if you're doing the Black-Eyed Susan Preakness double, you want to get horses. You want some horses on the lead. You want some mid-pack runners and maybe even a late runner in there. You kind of want to hit every level, because it is so wide open. I don't think Adair Manor is going to run away with it. And then it just kind of, if she doesn't win, it kind of opens the door for all these horses we're talking about.
Yeah. So I think when I play the double, I'll do epicenter keyed, and then I'll just do distinctly possible in a dare manner. I'm just
I
gonna hammer.
wouldn't bet. No. You shouldn't bet a dare manner into epicenter. That would be dumb.
It's not gonna be dumb because it's still gonna pay out well. Like it's not. She's not a heavy favorite. She's not sub even money. She's 5-2, and this is a wide open race. So I think that's the way that I would key the double. I don't like if Luna Bell wins, I'll be happy just for the story, but I'm not going to have her in any of my tickets. Water's too deep, too exhausted. And then Interstate Daydream, I think either a dare manner goes wire to wire, or the pace is too hot and it sets up for the closer. So maybe go with someone like, Morning Matcha or Miss Yearwood as a closer.
Ooh, Miss Yearwood, because that was one of my bombs I was going to talk about. Let's just go over her real quick. So actually, the reason I didn't notice this before, your horse Distinctly Possible for Chad Brown, the race that she won, she beat Miss Yearwood, and Miss Yearwood came back out of that race, maiden race, to win her next race. Now, if we look at Miss Yearwood, do you have the odds up, by the way?
Yeah, she's 20-1.
20-1, okay, because I don't have the odds. But she ran a 76 buyer, lost to your horse Distinctly Possible. She comes back at Churchill Downs. Ian Wilkes extends her out to 1.25 miles in a maiden special weight. So she ran the same distance as the Kentucky Derby at Churchill Downs. Now, she got another 76 buyer, so way slower than the actual Derby horses, but she won. She won by 7 lengths in that race. So this is clearly a horse that likes longer distance. And the Kentucky Oaks is 1 mile and an eighth race. So she's actually cutting back to run in the Kentucky Oaks out of the maiden special weight. And Ian Wilkes, if you look at Ian Wilkes, if you look at his stats when he has a horse that won its last start, he's had 55 runners and he wins at 20% with a 227 ROI for $2. So 27% ROI for Ian Wilkes runners off of a win. And she's going to be huge odds in here, 20-1. And she fired a bullet workout coming out of that maiden special weight win at Churchill. So, hey, you have a horse that likes long distance. It ran second behind your horse. Almost. Wasn't really. It didn't get smoked by Distinctly Possible.
I mean, you're talking me onto this horse. 20-1 on a deep closer.
Yeah, and she's a closer, right? To your point.
I think she's going to be on my ticket. So then I'll have 1 E, 1 P, and 1 S, and I'll be good to go.
There you go, man. Miss Yearwood, yeah. So I think she's the one. If it comes home and everyone's going to be throwing up their hands like, oh my God, how did this happen? Well, you heard it here first. She's cutting back into the Black-Eyed Susans. You don't see that very often, if ever.
That's right. That's a Horse Guy Mike podcast exclusive. Miss Yearwood, 20-1 bomb. We're on it. But my top pick in this race, Distinctly Possible. Your top pick in this race, Beguine. And I'm actually going to throw one more quick bomber in there. Radio Days for Shug McGahee, also 12-1. She got second behind a very great sprinter in Materia last time at Keeneland. Now, she's only run in one-turn races. She's run 5 times, 2 wins, 2 seconds. So she's actually been very good at running 1 turn. Now, this is her first race at 2 turns. So a lot of times horses like that, they go the first time at 2 turns and they can handle it. So maybe ultimately she is a 1-turn horse, but maybe there's a chance like she doesn't mind the 2 turns the first time she does it. And Rosario's staying on, so you get a good jockey there. So, she's coming off a 77 buyer, so she needs to improve as well. But hey, I think it's wide open, and I'm going to play a whole bunch of different horses for this one. Yeah, sounds good. So, all right, well, that's all I have about the Black-Eyed Susan and the Preakness. Do you have anything else to add, John? Nope. Let's do better than we did in Kentucky, and let's have a great weekend. All right, sounds good. Well, this is the Horse Guy Mike podcast. I'm your host, Horse Guy Mike. It's Johnny the Wire. Take it easy. We'll post another podcast tomorrow night for the either late pick 4 or late pick 5. We'll figure it out, but it'll be on the channel. All right. Undercard races. All right. May the juleps be with you. Take it easy.